Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are cracking open a period of American history that, well, it felt for the first time since maybe the Great Depression, like the nation had really hit its limits. We're talking about the years 1973 to 1980. The chapter title says it all. A Sea of Troubles.
It really does. We're setting the scene for a profound, swift, almost total collapse of confidence. Confidence in leaders, in institutions, even in the economy that had been booming since World War II.
Yeah, that stability just seemed to evaporate.
And that crisis of confidence, that's really our focus today.
Yeah.
We're going chronologically through the source material, a historical summary meant for, AP or college-level listeners like you.
Right.
We're tracing how that post-war liberal order got dismantled event by event, person by person, and how all this laid the groundwork for the political polarization, the economic anxiety we still see today.
So our mission then is to figure out how that classic American can-do spirit, the vibe of the 40s and 50s, how it just gave way to this really unaccustomed sense of limits. And as we track this decline, keep this paradox in mind. This era of, let's say, material anxiety and political failure, it also, at the same time, dramatically broadened cultural horizons for women and minorities.
That's a crucial tension, yeah.
Okay, let's unpack this then, starting with the scandal that just shattered everything, Watergate.
Watergate, it really is ground zero. And it started almost comically clumsy, didn't it? June 17th, 1972, 5 guys caught trying to plant bugs in the Democratic Party headquarters.
And these weren't just some random burglars. They were tied to Crete.
Right. The Committee for the Re-election of the President, and what the sources show Creep was up to, it's pretty stunning.
It's not just the break-in. It's a whole campaign of dirty tricks.
Exactly. Forging documents, using the IRS against Nixon's political enemies list, even breaking into the psychiatrist's office of Daniel Ellsberg, the guy who leaked the Pentagon Papers.
Wow.
And then the White House actively used the FBI and the CIA to, cover it all up.
And the crisis just picked up speed. Even before Watergate fully blew up, you had Vice President Spiro Agnew resigning in October 73.
Yeah, totally separate scandal, taking bribes. First time the 25th Amendment was used that way, putting Gerald Ford into the VP spot. So you've got this instant institutional chaos.
And then comes the bombshell revelation. Nixon had a secret taping system in the Oval Office.
And he fought tooth and nail to keep those tapes private, claiming executive privilege.
But the Supreme Court stepped in. Unanimously, July 1974. They said, nope. Executive privilege doesn't cover criminal evidence. No one's above the law.
Not even the president. And that led directly to the smoking gun tape.
Ah, the smoking gun.
Dated just 6 days after the break-in. And it shows Nixon, clear as day, ordering the CIA to block the FBI's investigation. Proof positive he was in on the cover-up from the start.
So, facing certain impeachment, Nixon resigns, August 8, 1974.
Right. And you can look at that, as the source does, and say, okay, the constitutional system worked. Impressive self-discipline for the republic.
But did it feel like a victory to people? I mean, the president resigned in disgrace. His VP was gone for bribery. The faith in government just plummeted, didn't it?
That's the key takeaway. The toll on public trust was immense, devastating. And this political earthquake wasn't happening in isolation. The economic ground was shaking, too.
Yeah, that post-war boom just stopped. Dead in its tracks.
Replaced by stagflation. That awful mix. The economy stagnates, but inflation runs wild.
Productivity gains just vanished.
Yeah.
Now, the sources mentioned a few things here. Declining investment, cost of regulations.
Yeah.
But also, it points to women and teenagers entering the workforce. How do we handle that? It sounds a bit dated.
It reflects the analysis in the source material from that time, looking at skill levels and types of jobs. But the bigger structural issue the sources emphasize is the root cause of the inflation itself.
Which goes back to the 60s.
Exactly. Lyndon Johnson spending, funding the Vietnam War, and the Great Society without raising taxes. That pumps money into the economy, but there aren't more things for people to buy, so prices just shoot up.
So that's the mess Gerald Ford inherits. The first unelected president, basically. Just appointed by Congress, already starting under a cloud.
A huge cloud. And then, almost immediately, he makes it worse.
The pardon.
The full pardon for Richard Nixon. Any crimes, past, present, future, related to his time in office. Ford said it was to heal the nation.
But nobody bought that, right? Especially Democrats. It looked
Yeah.
like a backroom deal.
It absolutely did. It fueled suspicion, deeply angered many, and, probably doomed his chances for election in '76 right from the start.
So domestically, he's struggling. What about internationally? He tried to keep détente going.
He did, initially, stick with Nixon's policy towards the Soviets. That led to the Helsinki Accords in July '75.
Right, Helsinki. What was the deal there?
Basically, the U.S. and Western Europe officially recognized the borders in Eastern Europe that the Soviets had set up after World War II. Big concession.
And what did the West get?
In return, the Soviets signed on to guarantees for human rights and more liberal exchanges, the third basket. Now, they tried to wiggle out of it immediately, but it did light a fire under dissident movements in Eastern Europe. Small, but significant.
The détente itself kind of fizzled out pretty fast after that.
It really did. Critics slammed it as a one-way street. U.S. grain and tech go to the USSR, but Moscow keeps cracking down on dissidents. Ford eventually just stopped even using the word détente.
A return to skepticism.
Yeah. And speaking of limits, 1975, the final painful end in Vietnam.
North Vietnam makes its big push south. Ford asks Congress for more aid.
And Congress says no. Game over.
Leading to those just chaotic images of the evacuation from Saigon, helicopters, people desperate to get out.
Yeah, frantic evacuation.
Yeah.
Americans and about 140,000 South Vietnamese allies initially. Eventually, the sources note, 500,000 refugees came to the U.S.
And the cost. Just staggering. $168 billion. 58,000 American lives, plus the Vietnamese losses and America's image.
Shattered. Loss of face, loss of self-esteem, loss of confidence in military power. A huge blow.
Okay, so while all this political and military collapse is happening in D.C., society itself is changing rapidly. Let's talk about feminism's second wave.
Absolutely. The 70s were a major moment for that. Big legal victories.
You have to mention Title IX. 1972 Education Amendments. No sex discrimination in federally funded education.
And the impact on women's sports was just revolutionary. Created the whole Title IX generation.
Huge. Plus, Congress passed the Equal Rights Amendment, the ERA, that same year, 1972.
And the Supreme Court weighed in, too. Cases like Reed v. Reed, Frontiero v. Richardson challenging sex discrimination, and of course the big one, Roe v. Wade in 1973.
Striking down state abortion laws based on a right to privacy. Landmark decision.
Hugely impactful. But these wins triggered a really powerful backlash.
The anti-feminist movement,
Yeah.
led by Phyllis Schlafly.
Right, conservative activist. Her campaign was Stop ERA, and the acronym was clever or pointed, Stop Taking Our Privileges.
What was her argument?
She argued the ERA wasn't about equality, it was about removing traditional protections women had. It would mean women in combat, unisex bathrooms, threats to the family. She mobilized a lot of opposition.
And she won, didn't she? The ERA failed.
Yeah, died in 1982, 3 states short of ratification, even after Congress extended the deadline. A major setback for the feminist movement at the time.
Race was also still incredibly volatile, even after the main phase of the civil rights movement.
Definitely. And the Supreme Court rulings were complex. Take Milliken v. Bradley in 1974. It said desegregation plans couldn't force busing across school district lines.
Which basically locked segregation into place in many areas, right? Fueled white flight.
It certainly reinforced it, yeah. Concentrated poverty and segregation in inner city schools.
Yeah.
A really difficult legacy.
And then affirmative action. The Alan Bake case in '78, that one seemed contradictory.
It was very nuanced. The court said Bake, a white applicant, was unfairly denied admission to medical school because they used racial quotas. That was illegal.
Yeah.
But they also said race could be used as one factor among many in admissions to achieve diversity. So quotas bad, considering race okay.
A very fine line. Justice Thurgood Marshall wasn't happy.
No, his dissent argued it completely missed the point of remedying past discrimination.
And we should also touch on Native American movements. Their goals were different, right? Not integration.
Exactly. They used similar tactics, protests, legal challenges, but the aim was asserting their status as separate, semi-sovereign nations.
The court recognized that.
To an extent. United States v. Wheeler in 1978 affirmed tribes had a unique and limited sovereignty, subject to Congress. That ruling later paved the way for the Indian Gaming Act and casinos.
Okay, so all these social currents, the economic anxiety, the political distrust, that's the backdrop for the 1976 election. And the rise of the new right.
Yeah, this wasn't just traditional Republicans. The new right pushed by figures like Richard Viguerie, was different. They focused heavily on cultural issues, abortion, ERA, busing, plus a very strong nationalist foreign policy. And they got really good at using primary elections.
But they didn't win the presidency in '76. That went to the outsider, Jimmy Carter.
The peanut farmer from Georgia, a born-again Baptist who ran hard against the memory of Nixon and Watergate. Promised integrity, I'll never lie to you.
And he won narrowly, largely thanks to African-American voters.
Overwhelmingly. He got something like 97% of the black vote. That was crucial.
Carter's presidency. What were the defining features? Human rights was a big theme.
Yeah, a big focus on human rights in foreign policy, championed by his UN ambassador, Andrew Young. His standout achievement, though, was definitely the Camp David Accords in September '78.
Bringing Egypt and Israel together.
Mediating peace between Anwar Sadat and Menachem Begin. A huge diplomatic win. He also normalized relations with China in '79 and got the Panama Canal treaties through Congress, fighting off conservative opposition, including from Ronald Reagan.
But despite those foreign policy successes, the economy just kept getting worse.
Oh, yeah. Inflation just wouldn't quit. It hit 13% by 1980. The prime interest rate went to an unbelievable 20%.
20%, wow.
And then came another oil shock, the oil crisis of 1979.
Triggered by Iran.
Exactly. The Shah of Iran, who the CIA had helped install back in '53, was overthrown by Islamic fundamentalists. Chaos ensued, Iranian oil stopped flowing, OPEC jacked up prices again, long gas lines, national frustration. It felt like '73 all over again.
And Carter's response, that didn't help things, did it?
Yeah.
The malaise speech.
Woof. Yeah, July 1979, he goes up to Camp David, consults with people, and comes back and gives this speech essentially blaming the American people.
Saying they had a crisis of confidence, focused too much on material goods.
Right. Instead of projecting leadership, he sounded like he was lecturing. And then he fired a bunch of cabinet members. It made him look weak, out of touch. It really backfired.
That atmosphere seems to have fueled a big shift in thinking, especially about the economy, the rise of the neoconservatives.
Yeah, this group, often former liberals, started really questioning the big government programs of the Great Society. They argued for free markets, deregulation.
And they had intellectual firepower behind them, like Milton Friedman.
Nobel Prize-winning economist. His book and TV series Free to Choose came out in '79, really pushing free market ideas into the mainstream. Made witty arguments against government intervention that caught on.
And you see this shift in practical terms too, right? With lobbyists and PACs.
Definitely. Corporate political action committees just exploded. Went from under 174 to over 1,000 by 1980. Big money getting organized to push deregulation and market solutions. The tide was turning against New Deal liberalism.
And Carter's presidency ends under this cloud, plus two massive foreign policy crises.
Right. First, SALT II, the arms limitation treaty with the Soviets, signed in June '79, but DOA in the Senate thanks to conservative opposition. Buried.
And then the big one, Iran.
The Iranian Hostage Crisis, November 4th, 1979. Militants storm the U.S. Embassy in Tehran, take dozens of Americans hostage. They demand the U.S. return the exiled Shah, who was in the U.S. for medical treatment.
Just weeks after that, the Soviets invade Afghanistan.
Yeah, December '79. Suddenly, there are fears the Soviets are making a play for the Persian Gulf oil fields, a double whammy of perceived American weakness.
Carter reacted pretty strongly, didn't he? Embargoes, Olympic boycott.
Yeah, embargoed grain and technology to the USSR, boycotted the Moscow Olympics, declared the Carter Doctrine, saying the U.S. would use force to protect the Persian Gulf. He even reinstated draft registration.
But the hostage crisis just dragged on, and that failed rescue attempt.
Oh, the rescue mission was a disaster. April 1980, equipment failure, aircraft collide in the desert, 8 servicemen killed. It just underscored this feeling of national impotence, incompetence. The hostages weren't released until Reagan's inauguration day.
So wrapping this period up, 1973 to 1980, what's the big picture from the sources?
It's clearly the end of an era, the end of that long post-war boom, the end of the broad liberal consensus. What replaced it? Growing political polarization, widening income inequality, a sense of government paralysis.
But as you said at the start, there's that paradox.
Exactly. That's the fascinating thing the source material leaves us with. This decade of economic trouble and political failure, this sea of troubles, happened at the same time that cultural and legal opportunities were expanding dramatically for women, for minorities, for Native Americans.
So rising anxiety and inequality alongside greater inclusion and diversity.
That tension, that paradox, that's really the complex legacy of the 1970s that carries forward.
A really crucial point to hold on to. A decade of perceived limits somehow opened up new possibilities for millions. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into such a pivotal and troubled chapter. So what does this all mean? That's up to you to explore next time.